Hey, what's up everybody? Sorry for a long delay since the last video. I got the bike, the SpeedX Leopard Pro, just before the holidays. Took some time off, went somewhere much sunnier and warmer than Boston, so I figured why not bring the bike. So I packed it up. Seems like it'll fit right. I packed it up as securely as possible and got a couple hundred miles in over the holidays, and I'll post about that later. But right now, from that experience of packing, unpacking, and still dialing in the fit of the seat post and saddle height, as well as the fore-aft position of the saddle, got me thinking a little bit about some of the aspects and the design aspects with the seat post. So that's what I want to focus on today in this video. Is really just about the seat post. In particular, two primary things. One is the mechanism that's used to clamp the seat post within the seat tube, and there's a little nook here where there's a little wedge and a hex screw access right here. So that's one thing. And the other factor is the adjustability of the fore-aft position of the saddle along the rails. There's two screws that you'll see at the top of the seat post here that are used for that. So those are going to be the primary items in this video, as well as maybe we'll talk about a couple other miscellaneous things such as carbon fiber grip, torque ratings, angle, the internals, and whatnot. So let's get started. Okay, so first we'll talk about the clamping mechanism of the seat post within the seat tube. And again, I mentioned before, there's this little nook here where there's a little wedge in here. So what I've done, and before I start that, let me just make one quick comment. If you're going to tinker around with the bike, I recommend just buying a set of these hex tools. You'll probably use almost all of them. I think the only ones that I haven't used are the largest and the smallest, the 10 and the 1.5 millimeter. But and this is a nice little set here. It's got this little holder that keeps everything organized. So one tip there. And for just tinkering with the seat post and the seat tube alone, it requires 3 of these wrenches, right? The 5 millimeter, the 4 millimeter, and the 2 millimeter. So what I've already done now in regards to this clamp is loosen this hex bolt. There's a hex bolt underneath here. So I've gone ahead and loosened that using the 4 millimeter Allen wrench. So I should be able to pull out the seat post pretty easily. And I've done that, and I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this wire. This is the wire that connects the battery within the seat post to the other technology and internals. Throughout, I guess the computer is really the primary one, and maybe the sensors, I'm not sure. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the battery, and you'll see as I disconnected it that it's springy, so it wants to dive right back down into the seat tube. So to prevent that, hang on tightly first, and then secondly, you can use this little hook to hook it against the frame like that, so it can just sit gently there. So I'm going to put the seat post down for a minute and talk a little bit about what's going on in the frame. What is going on is that, as you notice when I pull that seat post out on my stand here, I have the bike in this slanted downward position, and that is because there's, as I mentioned, there's this wedge in here that it's not really very well secured. So if you're not careful and pull the tube out and kind of don't mind it, and if it's tilted down, this wedge could actually fall down into the seat tube, and then you've got to struggle. Might as well avoid that, avoid having to turn it upside down or fish it out of there. So just be wary of that. I'll tell you a story that happened to me. So I arrived at my destination. I packed the bike, took the seat post out and the wheels off and everything, had that separate. And when I went to put the seat post back in the seat tube, I couldn't do it. I connected this cable and then I tried to slide it in, but something was preventing me. And that's this wedge. So I'm just gonna do a quick little adjustment here. wherever you travel, bring this 2mm with you, and that was the key point, right? I was lucky to have my whole set with me when I traveled. If you don't have a 2mm, it would be a little bit of a pain in the butt to figure out how to unlock, sort of release this, the flex of this wedge, to kind of relax it, to put it back in, and then to be able to retighten from the external exposed screw. So there's that part. Okay, so that was the seat post clamping into the seat tube. We have the seat post off, so let's take a closer look. There are a couple cutouts in the back of the seat post. One is for the light, the other is for the USB charging port. And then within the seat post, there are some internals here. I believe it's the battery first, and then the charging port for USB, and then the light. There's a little ceramic cover that you can easily unscrew with a Phillips screwdriver. And then you see this connector and the battery, etc. It was a little bit difficult for me. I was not able to get it out at this time with my quick check. I'll revisit this later. I think the reason was because this light protrudes from the cutout of the seat post a little bit, so you can see it's pretty flush at the top, but there's a little bit of a lip here. So I'd have to, if this is all one assembly, then I'd have to push this in a little bit with greater force to pull out everything connected here. So I just skipped on that for now, but I'll get back to that another time because I'm curious to see how everything's fit inside this seat post. So more about the seat post. Let's talk about the fixing clamping mechanism to fix the saddle fore aft position. So there's two screws here. One is a locking screw on the back that uses a 5mm screw, while the other one kind of serves a little bit as a locking mechanism, but it's really more for adjusting the tilt of the saddle. I guess some people like it down or up for whatever reason. I prefer flat, 0 degree. But anyway, so you saw the locking one back here. It comes from the bottom. The tilting screw is managed from the top, so it'll seem tight at first. If you loosen the back, the locking one, this will also loosen up and become easier to adjust. So after a while, I dialed it in, and I'm going to try and keep it where it is right now. You can see that well, one quick comment. You'll notice that this the tilt screw has this knob here at the top. And there's this little grommet or rubber insert to this hole here, and there's a comparable one on this other side. So that's how this hole through the post houses the receiver of this tilt screw. That's all. So it's a interesting little design aspect there. What else do I want to talk about? I want to talk about torque rating. So if you have a torque wrench, or I highly recommend with a carbon bike with all these carbon componentries, using a torque wrench. The SpeedX has provided a bicycle manual, and the instructions has instructions for the seat post and seat tube, which are basically summarized as loosen the screw, adjust it, tighten the screw, right? So it's pretty simple, but the key points here are in the appendix, and the torque specifications within the appendix has a nice table of various points, various screws throughout the bike. So in particular for the seat post related, the clamping one here that we talked about before with that wedge is rated at 4 to 6 Newton meters, while those screws clamping the saddle onto the post along the rails is rated at 6 to 8 Newton meters. So I recommend using a torque wrench. This obviously the frame as well as the handlebars and the seat post, and they are all products of SpeedX, and I think they're all carbon fiber. So better to be safe than sorry and not over tighten something and jeopardize the integrity of it. Okay, just a couple more things really quickly. SpeedX has provided this tube of paste or gel, I believe it to be fiber grip, which should be used between carbon surfaces, so I haven't used it yet because I'm still playing with my saddle position, my saddle height. But once I finally dial that in, I'll spread some of this gel paste on the inside of the seat tube as well as on the outside of the seat post, insert it, dial it down, knock it down, and that'll add a little extra friction to prevent slipping of the seat post down.